I'm Ron James. This is another special edition of Space Time on MUFON Television. I'm here with the California State Director for MUFON, Earl Gray. Earl, thanks for showing up.
It's my pleasure, Ron. I've known you for a while now. I'm glad that you had me come out today.
I know, this is like the third or fourth time we've sat down and done something like this.
Yeah.
So you're doing the State Director gig.
Yes, I am.
And you got a special award at MUFON 2022. What was it that you got?
I got Volunteer of the Year. I think the reason why was because they made me State Director, and but I was also helping put together the symposium with Marquetta this year. I'm doing like I'm keeping three balls juggling in the air at the same time. I'm State Director of Southern California, but I'm also an executive committee member of MUFON's ERT, the Experiencer Resource Team, and I'm a member of MUFON's Symposium Board, which right now just consists of Marquetta, Klimova, and myself. So with those three things, I retired from nursing after being a nurse for 38 years. My post-retirement, I'm busier than I was when I was working.
That's how it always is. You think you're done, but you're not done. You're just going to keep on doing something new.
It keeps you busy, but I mean, this is the most interesting and most important thing I think that's happening on our planet right now is the UFO phenomenon.
Well, yeah, I mean it's been that way forever, but now it's finally starting to get its due.
Finally
acknowledged. And with everything that's going sideways in the world, we need something to kind of hopefully maybe get us back on track.
Yeah.
I feel like if there's a broad acceptance by the general population that there is an extraterrestrial or non-human intelligence and it's a real deal, it's no longer something that we're speculating about. Maybe that'll knock humanity upside the head enough so we can take stock and knock off all this stuff we're doing.
Yeah, I agree. Ronald Reagan said, way back in 1986, I think, a speech to the United Nations, I believe it was, where he said that imagine how humanity would work together and drop their little problems that we have with each other if there was an extraterrestrial presence, and if it were a threat or benevolent, whatever it was, that would take our eyes off of these small problems that seem to be so all important to us now.
It's interesting that you bring that up about how the perception is. People are asking me all the time, because I do a lot of the radio interviews and stuff, and people are always asking me, well, what effect do you think this is going to have on civilization? And there's been kind of a generic answer for a really long time, but lately my response to that is it's really going to depend on the context. Everything depends on the context that we're given this information. If we're told, hey, there's extraterrestrial life, so they're occasionally here on the planet, they're doing their thing, we're doing ours, they're not really interested in having contact with us and they're not bothering us, then people are just going to go, okay, cool, well, let us know when there's something else to talk about, and they're going to go on with their lives. But if it's like, whoa, there's an extraterrestrial presence, we don't know what they want, but I noticed that they're cooking people and experimenting in underground caverns, so they're creating a food-grade human program, so there must be something wrong here. Then we're going to have widespread panic and absolute insanity. MUFON does not represent those thoughts, beliefs, or
Exactly. Yeah. Well, this is, I'll say, the beauty of MUFON is that we're independent of any governmental agency. It's we're all volunteers that work here. That's my award, Volunteer of the Year. Well, that's kind of what we're all doing. It's for love of the phenomenon and understanding this. Before MUFON was in the game, it was all military backed, with Project Blue Book and all that. And they're all about threat assessment and weaponization and, well, we got to get this, technology before our, enemies on Earth get it, and it was, this is why it was so scary and, for so long, because the guys that were studying the UFO phenomenon were studying the possible threat of the UFO phenomenon. With MUFON, we're going out there with an open mind. We don't have presupposition whether it's a threat or Space Brothers. We're going in there just wanting to know what exactly it is, and we're not trying to determine threat levels and things like that. For the public, that's a lot less scary. Whenever a report comes in from a governmental agency, it comes off, people wind up afraid, and I don't think that the phenomenon is something that we should be afraid of. I think it's something we should be in awe of, but not afraid of. And honestly, if they were trying to invade Earth, for instance, we know that they've been here since at least 1947. The Roswell crash and all that, which harkened in Project Blue Book and, all the governmental studies. Well, they've had over 75 years at least on Earth, and if they're trying to invade us, they're doing a pretty poor job of it.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of emerging beliefs that there's an ultra-terrestrial element to this, meaning that there's a race of beings that have had a presence here since possibly long before us, and that's what we're seeing, and that they traverse the Earth and space through underground and underwater installations. Quite possible. And maybe they have some sort of extraterrestrial connection, obviously. But I'm leaning more toward the all of the above thing. I think there's a consciousness element to this phenomenon.
Oh, yeah.
There's a interdimensional element to it. There's a whole nature of reality element. And when you look at it from the macro view, and you start realizing that, if we're living in literally some sort of a simulation and the universe works on algorithmic patterns, it could be, even by the most stringent laws of physics, it could be described as a simulation. And if that's possible, then anything that's happening within the simulation or even outside of the simulation is all adjustable with the stroke of a cosmic keyboard. And so when I see people getting caught in the minutia of, well, it's this and it's not that, my response has become lately, well, it's probably both. At the same time, even though they contradict each other, they're probably both happening. And if you want to argue about whether it's aliens from Zeta Reticuli or ultra-terrestrials living underground or some whole other thing, it's like, that's all a moot point, because all of it is possible and probable, and it could even be happening for you in a tangible way, but it'll never affect me, because reality, we're starting to learn, is also subjective to a great degree on a personal basis.
Yeah.
So this ET phenomenon, this UFO phenomenon, I believe in the next revelations are going to be that they're teaching us about a whole broader scope than whether or not there's life on another planet.
Well, now, with the new space telescope, the Webb telescope that we have up there, they're finding planets that have water, I mean, it's becoming, it's not a question mark anymore. And for myself, and I think for anybody that's looked at this phenomenon, seriously, that it would be ridiculous if we were the only intelligence out there. I mean, we're one planet on the edge of a galaxy that has 200 billion stars, and every one of them has a possibility of having an Earth or two or three.
Quite possible, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that life is probably rife through the universe, and we're kind of a backwater planet here. Certainly not the center of the universe like we used to see ourselves.
Well, NASA, since the deployment of Webb, they're gearing up to be untruthful again. I heard through the grapevine, okay, I can't verify the source, but I have heard that Webb has already discovered that 7-Eleven has stores in Alpha Centauri.
Well, that's good. If I can get a Slurpee, at Alpha Centauri, that's a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's a long way to get there, so you want to bring plenty of water, but at least there's refreshments when you arrive.
Going 186,000 miles a second, the speed of light, it's still going to take you 5 point something years to get there. You know, so and that's something to think about too. Just the distances between stars. I think that it kind of, they have to have some alternative way of getting here other than just puttering across the universe, you know, below light speed.
I think they've pretty much determined that these craft are able to create and traverse wormholes.
Yeah.
You know, the Defense Intelligence Agency released all those reports that came out of Bigelow Aerospace, researching technologies that are straight out of Star Trek.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, people are like, oh, well, that's just, you know, modern day scientists theorizing. And I'm like, it's absolutely not that. They've recovered technology and they're trying to figure out how it works. And that's what these things are all about. What's happening in California? Is there any trends, anything trending, any types of sightings?
You know, we're always busy here. I mean, California, I mean, the statistics came out again, the monthly statistics today, and California, again, we're on top, you know. There's 80 sightings just reported to MUFON. And for every sighting that's reported to us, I figure there's probably 5 or 10 that weren't, you know. But you know, the coastal regions here, that's where we find, you know, so many sightings. I mean, I recently had one case come in where it was a pilot, his wife and his brother-in-law. They were camping on East Catalina Island. And this pilot was used to traversing the California coast. That was his flight path, you know. And it was about 11 o'clock at night or so, and he sees this sphere come out of the ocean. It was a golden, glowing sphere. Now this guy he's a commercial pilot, you know, and he was very cogent and lucid, obviously, you know, when I'm talking with him. But he watched this thing come out of the water. It did a crosswise pattern in the air, and then it went back in and resubmerged. When it resubmerged, by that time his wife and his brother-in-law had gotten out of their tents. We had the 3 sets of eyeballs on this thing. He thought the show was all over. No, came back out of the water again. It started doing its pattern again, and then it shot up out of the atmosphere.
Wow.
He was very good at dead reckoning. He's a pilot. He's used to seeing things. So this was about 10 miles off the coast of the mainland, 10 miles off the coast of Catalina. So it was sort of, you know, concentric there. So he was seeing this from about 10 miles away. He had a pair of binoculars with him. And he said that just looking at it, it was probably 300 feet across. I don't believe that we have that technology ourselves.
No.
Now, I spoke with Kevin Day, who is a friend of mine. He was the strike force commander on the Princeton during the Tic Tac affair that happened in 2004. And I gave him the coordinates of the sighting, and they were the exact same coordinates of where they first detected the Tic Tac UFO coming from low Earth orbit down to sea level and shooting back up again.
Is there a trend in that area?
You mean
Yeah, the Catalina area.
in the oh yeah, oh it's one of the busiest
It's heating
areas.
up even more.
That whole coast. I mean, you know, over at Santa Cruz Island in that area, it's, you know, near closer to Santa Barbara. There was a major sighting just recently that a pilot had.
Now, are we getting video evidence of this?
Yeah, there is a video. The pilot took a video with his iPhone. It's not a good video. It's not like the FLIR videos that we have, you know, that the military had. But
Right.
but he did get a video, and we got the case. I know Ben Hansen was very interested in this case and just did a video about it. And one of my field investigators, I got a field investigator who's an astrophysicist as well. She's an astrophysicist working for NASA, and she's afraid for her, you know, for her employment. So I'm not going to mention her name. What she told me is NASA does not understand our mission statement.
The study of UFOs?
UFOs for the benefit of humanity. They don't understand that for some reason.
Really?
I know. It just like.
Well, I mean, you know, here's the thing.
We wonder why we're not back on the moon yet.
Yeah, they've been complicit in covering this stuff up. They've been covering up life on Mars since at least 1976.
Yeah.
So, how would they understand it?
Yeah.
Because whatever they're serving at the deepest levels, they're not serving humanity, or at least not the broader humanity.
They're afraid of how humanity is going to react to this. That's what my mom, my mom was deep in aerospace. That's what
literally.
She did. Yeah. She worked in a deep underground military base during the 50s, And she kind of gave me a disclosure number when I was 5 years old, and then spent the rest of her life telling me you can't talk about it. You can't, your mom could wind up in jail. But my mom told me that we know that UFOs are real. The government already knows that there's intelligences out there, and they've even made contact with them. But they are so afraid of how the public will react. They're afraid for major religions that it will affect them. They'll have to reconfigure the way that they look at, it's like the Earth is not the center of the universe anymore.
Which is interesting because, the Catholic Church has pivoted to make room for this.
Yes.
And Islam already thinks that, acknowledges life in outer space from its earliest teachings. And almost all of the religions of the world talk about people from the stars having some influence on us. But, I think more it's the economic and power status quo.
Oh, yeah.
That's really what's keeping them from doing it. I mean, if we get some kind of free energy device, the whole infrastructure that controls the entire planet is upended overnight. And so they're not so much worried about your average Joe, they're worried about their average bank account.
If they handed us, 0-point energy tomorrow, the oil industry would be defunct.
It'd be over.
There would be no reason for it.
And the people that are, the people at the top, the hidden hands that are running society as well as all this classified stuff, it's all the same bunch of folks. Mm-hmm. And we don't know who they are. Mm-hmm. And we can guess, we can surmise, we can get clues, but we don't know. And their function and their power would be wiped out overnight. And then there'd be a vacuum with who knows what trying to fill it. Yeah. If you can't put a meter on it and charge for it, then what good is it? Yeah. And there has to be an energy source that defies the known laws of physics, because these craft, I interviewed Dr. Michio Kaku for my film, and he says, well, they must have some space-age material. And I realized after the interview that I didn't ask him the right question, because no space-age material is going to let you hit water at thousands of miles an hour and go from water to air to space. There has to be some kind of energetic something. And they can theorize about how to do that. They're creating some kind of field. We know theoretically it's possible, but the amount of energy that it would take to create that field is, by what we know, it's off the charts. We can't do it. But obviously that's what's happening. So we know that there's a power supply, a power source at play that defies everything we think we know.
Well, imagine this. Now, there historically, civilizations with higher level of technology have come in contact with civilizations in canoes and stuff, right?
It never ends well.
And it never ends well. And, people, when they have a face-to-face meeting with one of these entities, say in an abduction scenario, visitation scenario, Dr. John Mack coined the term ontological shock to describe this. And what it means is that all your concepts, your basic idea of reality is pulled out from under you like a rug, mm-hmm. and you're kind of left there hanging, and it's a form of PTSD. I recognize this in almost every single person that I speak with who's been abducted or had a visitation. Now imagine if that happened to every person on the globe, because that's what's going to happen. If the president or somebody comes out tomorrow and says, guess what? We aren't alone. We know that they're here. We're already in touch with them and communicating with them. In fact, we've been doing that for some time. And they're 4,000 years ahead of us. Because it would be like every single person on the planet would go through ontological shock, which would mean they would either kind of huddle in the corner in fear, or we've seen people are good at fight or flight. That's the human reactions.
Well,
Fight or flight.
again, I think it's the context of it all. People are not going to freak out if there's nothing to freak out over. Almost everybody on the planet at this point believes two things: that there's a most likely intelligent life elsewhere, and that the government's been lying to us about it. You're not going to find very many people that will disagree with that, no matter where you go. Now, whether or not they spend a whole lot of time thinking about it is a whole other thing. But if that is just confirmed, it's going to be life goes on. Joe Sixpack is going to continue living his life almost exactly. It might add a little more processing to the thought process of people that are really thinking about who we are, why we're here, what our place in the universe is. That for those people, there'll be a lot more to add to the conversation. But there's not that many of those people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are just kind of caught in the matrix, and they don't even know they're in it.
Yeah.
They don't even know there is one.
Well, it comes back down to, the whole Robertson report and all that from 1952. The official way that they decided to deal with UFO reports was through, making fun.
Yeah,
of
ridicule
the
and
people,
debunking.
ridicule and debunking, and they're going to have to roll back on that, and they're going to have to admit that they've been lying to us. Right there, that's huge. I mean,
Yeah.
the rebranding of the UFO phenomena as
To
UAPs is they're trying to act like it's a new phenomenon.
Well, that's what my whole movie's about. Is the first thing we're doing is proving that that's a lie.
Yes.
And then we're going and taking a deep dive into what we can prove that they learned and studied during those missing years.
Yeah.
And the reason the film's called Accidental Truth is because, I sat a lot of people in chairs and asked them really hard questions. And sometimes it's a lot funner to watch the way they don't answer than the way they do. So it's just like, okay, now that sounds like an admission to me. So so that's why it's called Accidental Truth, because
I can't wait to
it's like
see it.
Have you seen
great.
this? Did you see the sizzle reel in Vegas? In Denver?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just a taste of what it's like. It's just
Yeah.
kind of one bam, bam, bam right after another.
Wow, fantastic.
So California's trending, and we're
yeah.
seeing a lot of the Tic Tac kind of craft displaying a lot of the same capabilities.
Well, the same capabilities, but not necessarily the same shape as the Tic Tac.
Right.
We have a lot of spherical craft that people see. We have a lot of the V-shaped craft. I brought visual aids.
Oh,
we
cool.
see these guys a lot, the black triangles, which I personally think that perhaps
These are ours.
Perhaps these are ours.
Yeah.
Perhaps they're coming out of Lockheed or Boeing or some. Yeah, we have a lot of sightings out by Plant 42 in Palmdale. I had one aerospace engineer, and this was a good 5 years ago, where he put in a case that 3 a.m. he was working late, and he's driving home, and he sees the stars are being blotted out in front of him. There's some object in the sky. He pulled over, he got out of the car to see what it was, and it was one of these guys. He said it was this black triangle.
How big was it?
It was about 50 feet across, 60 feet across.
So these are probably, they say the TR-3B is actually a craft. And
he watched this thing, it traveled right over him, perfectly silent, absolutely silent. And he said that it came over, it went over Plant 42.
Where'd you get this thing?
I built that. It's a model. Remember
that's really
plastic
cool.
models?
Yeah. No, I'm building the Enterprise right now.
There you go. All right.
For like the 100th time in my life. I don't know how many Starship Enterprise models I've built that I've lost count. It's more than my fingers.
Oh my God. But we see a lot of the black triangles, and this guy, I checked the guy's background. I said, well, I want to see your badge, and he showed it to me, and he worked for a major aerospace company, and he was, and I have a lot of these guys put in reports. But the way that the addendum to when we closed the case, and I told him I thought that what he saw was real, and he said, well, do you know how I might be able to get onto that project? I really, really, really want to work on that project. I don't know if you guys, it's like, I wish I knew, you know, I don't even know who's building.
Well, you know, then you say, well, you know, when you saw the craft, do you have any missing time? And if he says yes, then you say, well, you're on the project.
Yeah, you're already on the project. Well, that, you know, if it's
you're just not going to remember
craft,
any of it. All right, so in the name of MUFON and spontaneity and the Space-Time Show, which anything can happen, we just happened to drop a guitar in Earl Gray's hands,
There you go.
and we had no idea that it would turn into something. So he's going to do an original song that's probably never been heard. It's not copyrighted by YouTube, won't get us, will they?
No,
Yeah.
it's the song's copyrighted, but it's not. I can play it because it's my own song.
Well,
so
yeah.
You don't have to pay me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sick any lawyers on
Okay,
you. or
yeah, you
anything.
hear that, YouTube?
Maybe a black triangle.
Leave us alone.
We'll send some guys to abduct you.
I could chime in with some visual effects here.
There you go.
All right, I'm going to step out.
Okay.
Earl Gray
Oh, thank you.
doing his first musical presentation with a MUFON sign behind him. I think we're on to something new. This is going to be a whole new trend.
I love
MUFON's entertainment branch is
I
expanding.
should take my ponytail out, but no, I'm not going to. Fallen Down by Earl Gray Anderson. Sometimes I get so close to the edge, and I feel like I am falling down a road that's more like a ledge, and I feel like I am falling. I'm falling down, and I can't catch myself. I'm falling down. I'm crying for help. I'm falling down, and I can't resist the headlong pull of the darkness. I'm falling down. Well, I'm kicking at the wall of a lucid dream, and I feel like I am falling, where I'm forced to fight the Fisher King, and I feel like I am falling. Ooh, I'm falling down, and I can't catch myself. I'm falling down, crying for help. I'm falling down, and I can't resist the headlong pull of the darkness. I'm falling down, and I know the wild topography of the badlands of your heart, and I go back where I used to be, but I don't know where to start. It's very hard. I'm falling down, and I can't catch myself. I'm falling down, I'm crying for help. I'm falling down, and I can't resist the headlong pull of the darkness. The headlong pull of the darkness, the headlong pull